I was able to dig up this little interesting nugget. This is a video clip from shortly after 9/11 from Fox News that's been sitting in the archives for over 2 decades. Kudos to whoever was able to drag it out and find it. But boy, is this not telling.
Miller in Lower Manhattan. David, thank you very much. Since Tuesday, we've been mentioning a certain company, the bond trading firm Cantor Fitzgerald. They employed about 1,000 people on several top floors at the World Trade Center. The head of Cantor Fitzgerald, Howard Lutnick, just happened to be out of the office that day that the terrorists struck.
Yeah, total coincidence. Just like with lucky Larry Silverstein. The only guys that managed to somehow avoid being there on that given day. And they seem to benefit quite substantially from a financial standpoint as a result of that. Pay attention.
Mr. Lutnick was taking his son to his first day of kindergarten. Now he says he has a very different view of business and life. He spoke to our business correspondent, Terry Keenan, earlier today.
We are really focused on trying to make sure that our 700 families who lost a member of their family are taken care of. And so I spent the day yesterday and part of the day in talking to our insurance company. Our insurance company, CNA, told me that they would, well, they told our guys, they didn't tell me, and then they told me that, that they were willing to treat this as an accidental death, which means that they would double the policy for all of my my victims upstairs and all.
One more time. Listen closely.
Means that they would double the policy for all of my my victims upstairs. And
victims upstairs, as in the victims above the impact zone at the top of the North Tower. Not a single person survived. I always found it interesting how the first plane struck Cantor Fitzgerald. Right there. I think it was like the 105th floor, something like that. Not a single person from Cantor Fitzgerald that was there that day survived the attack. But somehow, some way, much like Lucky Larry Silverstein, Mr. Lutnick, Nutlick, as we like to call him now, he just so happened to be dropping his kid off at school that day. And like Larry Silverstein, he was in the office every day, forever, always at the office. But somehow, some way, on that magical day of 9/11, he just so happened to not be there, claiming that he was taking his kid to the first day of school, but as it also turns out, he probably wasn't there. I also want to point out, guys, since we have over 870 people watching live, make sure you're also subscribed on Rumble. You know, one of the things that also ends up happening as they suppress this channel is to make sure that nobody gets to see it. So hopefully subscribing at Rumble will help as well. We also are streaming live on Instagram as we speak. So make sure you do that. And if you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do us a solid and do so, as it is a tremendously appreciated gesture, and it helps get the word out about the live stream. When you have a slip of the tongue like this, well, actually, it's not even a slip of the tongue. It's a Freudian slip. It's a true Freudian slip. My victims? Yes, very much so. And make sure you go over to patreon.com and you can sign up for free. We're starting a community chat over there. So any support there as well helps. But make no mistake, when you say my victims upstairs, you're telling on yourself. This is what they do. There's a reason why these videos have been suppressed for decades. And now they're coming out. Larry Silverstein, I believe, is 94 years old, and I believe Lutnick is 70-something. So it's not surprising. But what these lessons are supposed to teach us. So he pocketed $135 million of that policy and never paid the families of the deceased, as I heard. I'm sure. Oh, that wouldn't surprise me as well. Listen, if you're willing to be on the inside of a grand conspiracy known as Operation Main Event, which is what it was allegedly called, somebody's getting paid. And Lutnick certainly looks like he's doing pretty well. And considering his affiliation with Epstein, this should come as absolutely no surprise to anybody, but he's got more to say.
All of us, and so that added $35 million to that group upstairs. But the sad thing is, so $35 million sounds like so much money, but if you divide it by 700 people, it's only $50,000. It's not enough to. So that's why we need to work on our foundation.
If you've never seen fake crying in your life, that's an example of horrific acting. Not, well, you could do a little bit better. Could you be a little bit more convincing? Anyone who's watching this would know this guy's full of shit. With just an ounce of awareness, they would know, oh, this guy's not really crying. He's not really sad. He's just pretending. Can you believe me now? You think people will believe me? Should have, you'd be like Robert De Niro. You should have dabbed your eyes a little bit before you got in front of the camera. You're not really convincing me. You're not really convincing me. I think you got to do a better job. Better job. Yeah. I heard things like he's full of shit. Big time.
And you've set up that foundation. We'll give the information to our viewers. Explain the needs of these young families. Many of your traders were just in their 30s.
We've got the average employee we have is around 33 years old. So they're just married. We have probably a dozen women who are pregnant with babies who just lost their husbands. We've got lots and lots and lots and lots. We must have more than 1,000 children, 1,500 children who've now lost one of their parents, and they've lost the breadwinner that makes all the money. So we are dedicated to raising money for our foundation, which will go to take care of and try to help the victims of this horrible tragedy and try to make their lives a little easier, whether that pays for health insurance for a long time or gets them some extra money or makes their lives even this much easier. I mean, that's what we're doing, and that's what we're driving for, and it's called the Cantor Fitzgerald Foundation. And anyone who can make a donation to it is going to help a lot of people who really need it.
And as has been pointed out in the chat, it appears that Mr. Lutnick decided to pocket a considerable amount of those proceeds. A lot of people never got paid. Remember how impactful a true mensch of a Jewish person, Jon Stewart, was when he had to fight on Capitol Hill on behalf of firefighters not getting their benefits. That's what it took. It took that much attention. I remember it well. This was back in, this is like 2013, 2014, something like that. And why would it ever have to come to that? The more we learn about 9/11 today, the more you have to recognize that this was an inside job. And I'm not even talking about Building 7. I'm not even addressing that one. That's a whole story unto itself. You don't even need Building 7 to know that this was an inside job. Building 7 just confirms it. That's all that does. Those layers, it's pretty thick. But this is a guilty man right here.
And just finally, it was just, the accident of timing and luck on your part that you weren't in the building. And I know some of the other survivors here. How do you feel it must, tear you in so many different directions?
I don't know why I'm alive. I not only was I didn't.
You're alive because you knew the attack was coming and you didn't show up to work for the first time in how many years? That's why you're alive. If there's a hereafter, you're going to get yours. Don't worry.
Get to the building early enough so that I wasn't in it. But then I stood outside at the door helping people out and telling them to come on, get out, and asking what floor they were on, trying to find the higher and higher floors so that I could hopefully find someone coming down from 101 so that meant our guys and our women had survived. But I'm standing under the building when the number 2 collapses, and I'm just lucky to be alive, and I don't know why I am, but you know what, I'm just thankful, and it must be because I've got the responsibility to try to do my best for this group of 700 families, and I'm just one of them. I lost my brother, my sister's here. We're just part of the family, and you know, that's my responsibility, and I'm going to do my best. And my fantastic employees at Cantor and eSpeed and TradeSpark, they're doing their best to support these guys, and that's what's driving them. And you know, I think they're heroes. They're really all heroes.
I don't think you fully understand how psychopaths operate. I think you truly don't understand that even family is expendable. And this is how things are. Now, it's possible he might have suggested maybe he shouldn't go into work today, but he went anyway. Who knows? But he can't go out there and say it outright. This is the reason for that. And when you talk about a criminal family that has a history of doing some really shady shit, then you get things like this. Howard Lutnick's family firm bought up the rights to tariff refunds for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar after Liberation Day last year. Today, the Supreme Court struck the tariffs down. For every $100 invested, Lutnick's sons just made 3 to 5x on their money. That's criminal behavior. So basically, what was going on, for those that understand the finance world and why this is such a big deal? If you remember a year ago, Lutnick was out there touting the tariffs as a great investment. This is what we should be doing. And all the while, behind the scenes, he was betting against them. He was betting that they would fail. And as a result, in lieu of the Supreme Court and the ruling they just handed down, they ended up getting even richer. Do you understand how a criminal mindset works? Do you understand that people kill for a lot less than this? So when somebody says his brother died on 9/11, how could you even suggest that he wouldn't tell him? Are you nuts? You clearly don't understand how these people operate. Do you see how brazenly they kill for money and power, especially the Palestinian people? They don't even hesitate. Oh, means to an end. They got in our way. We have a job to do. To me, this says it all. But that's not where the story ends. I brought this up tonight, not because this proves that Lutnick is a criminal. That much it does prove. Does it prove that he was in on the 9/11 conspiracy? There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that suggests that he was. Now, I can't prove it yet. But do I think he had something to do with it? Yeah, I do. Do I think the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, who just happened to not be at the office the day when more people died on 9/11 than any other office in the World Trade Center? No one had more deaths than Cantor Fitzgerald. Do I think he had something to do with it? Yeah, I do. And at a minimum, he knew about it. So how do we bring this story full circle? The one thing I will never forget when it came to 9/11 when I was young, I learned shortly after 9/11, because there was a time shortly after 9/11, or pretty much right at 9/11, I had initially signed up to join the U.S. Army. Now, eventually I did not go. Long story short, it was not long thereafter. I'm talking within that year, 2002, before we went to Iraq, invaded Iraq, excuse me. One thing I realized that never really got talked about was that there was a massive stock sell-off of United and American stock after 9/11, or before 9/11, I should say. 4 days prior to 9/11, there were short options put on United stock and American stock. After 9/11, the day after, United stock went down 39%, and American stock went down 42%. So somebody got really rich. Now, is it possible that it was Mr. Lutnick and Cantor Fitzgerald? I don't know. But I know this much. Colin, if you would, please. 9/11 terrorists made millions on the stock market. Now, this is an article from Truthout from November of 2011. So basically 10 years later. Terrorism, the ultimate in insider trading. A Charles Sturt University researcher says that what happens to financial markets after a terrorist attack and how terrorists make money from these market movements. He's not specifying what the terrorist is. You would assume that they're talking about Arabs, but no, that's not who the terrorists are. The terrorists are people like Lucky Larry Silverstein and Howard Lutnick. Those are who the real terrorists are. Scroll down, please. So a Charles Sturt University researcher says that what happens to financial markets after a terrorist attack and how terrorists make money from these market movements is illustrated by the suspicious trading that occurred immediately before the successful attacks on New York, Madrid, and London. Dr. Hugh McDermott, senior lecturer in law enforcement at the CSU Australian Graduate School of Policing in Manly, says the terrorists make money by speculating on the markets. When terrorists have inside info on an imminent attack, they purchase financial derivatives before the attack and make millions from the subsequent market movements. Global financial markets react swiftly to the news of the terrorist attacks on New York, Madrid, and London with a general flight to quality. Gold, bonds, and defense stock strengthened, and investors flocked to highly liquid developed markets. In contrast, less mature markets suffer, as do stocks, as reassurance and aviation. American Airlines share price dropped 39% after 9/11, and United dropped 42%. Excuse me, I had the two backwards. My apologies. Even a novice trader can see the windfall that could be achieved in shorting these stocks before a terrorist attack. Market movements. Dr. McDermott, a former senior manager of major fraud and international enforcement with the Aussie Securities and Investment Commission, notes that the German Stock Market Commission reported that in the days before 9/11, derivatives traded on underwriter Münchener Ruck were twice normal volumes. Münchener Ruck's share price dropped 22% after the attacks. On September 7th, 2001, the number of put options on British Airways was 4 times normal volumes. British Airways shares dropped 42% over the following week. Between September 6th and 7th, 4,744 put options were bought on United, 6 times the normal volumes, assuming that 4,000 of these options were bought by terrorists. Again, assuming. And if they are terrorists, they're not the terrorists that you're thinking of. Not the people flying in the planes, which supposedly happened. We're talking about the financial terrorists. That's who the real terrorists are. These insiders would have profited almost $5 million. On September 10th, 4,500 put options were bought on American Airlines, 285 times normal volumes. Assuming the 4,000 of these options were purchased by terrorist insiders, they would have netted a gain of about $4 million. The point is, financial stocks also declined after the attacks due to the disruption of trading and the operation of the financial system. World Trade Center was the nerve center of the global financial system, so the attacks were a major disruption to businesses. 74% of the civilian deaths in the attack were people employed in the financial industry, and many investment banks had head offices in or around the World Trade Center. I think we can conclude it here. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, is that the more we learn and the more we understand about 9/11 and so many other historical inflection points in our nation's history since World War II in particular, is that Israel, more often than not, had a hand in what was going on. And those that stand to benefit the most from it, particularly Silverstein and Lutnick, are fiercely loyal financial supporters of the state of Israel. And we are at their mercy for now. So when you look around at what's happening right now in West Asia, also known as the Middle East, and when you see what's happening with Iran, and knowing full well that Iran is one of a few developed countries in the world that is not a Rothschild, Zionist-controlled bank of a country, you can understand why this is such a devastatingly dangerous moment. Hezbollah pronouncing support for Iran. North Korea, Russia, China. This is World War III, most likely. I hope cooler heads prevail, but when you consider who's controlling the levers of power right now, I'm not going to hold my breath. And if we've learned anything from this segment, is that people will kill for money and power. People will kill a lot for money and power. Just as they're doing in Gaza, just as they've done throughout history. There is nothing unique about this at all. Nothing unique at all. This is human behavior. This is psychopathic human behavior. And it accounts for about 4% of the human population. And when you think about the 8 billion plus people on this planet, well, you do the math. There's at least a couple of 100 million people on this planet that think like Howard Lutnick and Larry Silverstein. They're all amongst us. Now, do I think some of the psychotic behavior can be attributed to the environment that you're brought up in, and it could be exacerbated worse? Yes, I think that's reasonable. But if it's inherently buried within you, many times people will just figure out a way to make it so.